Hello, this is a Drawing 2 class taught by Rossi. In class today, we're working on matte and shiny objects from a still life using pencils on drawing paper. As you can see, the still life has many different objects on black and white cloth. Some of them are gray, white, as well as shiny. I've asked the students to choose a section of this composition and create thumbnails to decide whether the composition will be vertical or horizontal, and then draw them on the top of their paper. For my demo, I have decided to do the shiny urn as well as the gray bottle and a white bottle. I chose this composition because it is asymmetrical, and it follows the rule of thirds. So most of the items that we see fall on two of the cross lines from the rule of thirds. Students are asked to start with an organizational line drawing, mapping out the width and height of all of the objects, and then using plein air analysis, mapping out where all the shadows that they see in the still life are. That means that we want to establish the height and width of each of these objects, and then through contour line decide where all the shadows and what the shapes of the shadows of each of these items will be, how the shadow would lay on that form, and what the shape of that shadow would be. Paying attention to make sure that all of our lines are in perspective, that all of the boxes, for example, that lines are going to the correct angle in perspective, following that vanishing point if you see the side, and a much more true one-point perspective if you see just one side flat and facing you, horizontal and parallel to your picture plane. After establishing a plein air analysis and using organizational line and contour line, I ask each student to use crosshatching to determine the value. So the first thing we want to decide while looking at our still life is what our midtones are from the section of the still life that I have chosen. I'm deciding that the beer bottle, which is gray, is the midtone of my drawing. By establishing this midtone, I will have room within my value scale to include the white milk bottle as well as that white cloth. And then the value of the urn will be somewhere in between, places that have lots of highlights and other places that are much more in the midtone or shadowed areas. So to go back to this beer bottle, I ask that students establish the gray scale, the gray of the bottle first. And you can do that by using a cross-hatching line. Here I have a paper towel to put underneath my hand so I don't smear the entire drawing as I go. So the first thing I'm going to do is using lines at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to actually just establish the value of the entire bottle. Making smaller marks allows me to have much greater control so that I can slowly build up that value and that I can have that line describe the form rather than big strokes, which are going to interrupt and sometimes flatten out the image that we're drawing. This consistency, mostly on the first layer, will give uniformity to the drawing. After establishing that first layer, the students should start looking at the actual object and determining where they see the biggest changes in value. here I've started the value on the top of the beer bottle. By continuing to do a cross-hatching, where I see the value shift, become darker, and slowly layering it up, I can establish that value change of the shadow in an elegant way. While doing the shadows that are close to the outside of the bottle, mostly because this specific bottle actually looks like it gets darker right on the edge, I want to just tuck that cross-hatching line right to the edge of that line, so it doesn't look like there's an outline around it anymore, but rather that that value is slowly creating a gradient into the interior of the bottle. Since this area is where light is hitting the most, we're going to keep that area the lightest, but we still want to create that feeling of a gradient light that is slowly going from dark to light, even as we're establishing these midtones. Having the plein air analysis, and that kind of shows me where my value is shifting and changing, really helps me. It becomes a map of where I want to add value. So we're going to continue to work slowly like that. I like to keep my cross-hatching lines facing the same direction, same 45-degree angle, and continue to layer them. However, in order to get even darker, I can start to cross that cross-hatching line. What I mean by that, just do a sample here, is that as I make a paired cross-hatching line that's at a 45-degree angle, this is going to be the most natural way for my hand to be able to make that mark. You don't want to do something that's really unnatural for your hand. But then to make that area darker, you can go back over it in that same 45-degree angle, and or go in a 45-degree angle in the other direction. Only after establishing that do you want to start using a vertical or a horizontal. Be careful with your vertical and horizontal marks. You really want to blend them in together. Our eye interprets vertical marks as something like a light pole, something that's sticking up out of the ground. And horizontal marks we interpret as horizon lines. So both of those marks will flatten out part of your drawing. So if I were to make true vertical or true horizontal marks right here, the bottle will stop looking like it's curved or like it has volume, and it'll start looking flat. So it's something that you want to avoid. It's something that you can choose to use in areas where you have surface, or the part of the bottle that I'm working on now where the shaft of it is very much vertical. That vertical line will actually emphasize that line of the bottle, that it isn't curved, that it is up and down. So that's a place where I can really use that line. But then I can continue to blend it in with a 45-degree angle line. So this is going to be a 6-hour drawing. The students actually worked on this drawing for about an hour at the end of one class period, and we will continue to work on this drawing for an entire class period next time, and then one additional one to finish and create final touches. I will do another video at the end of next class to show you our progress. But just to give you a little bit of a preview, again, that mid-tone bottle is going to stay our mid-tone, and then the white bottle is going to be a couple shades lighter than that, maybe using the mid-tone that we see in here. That's going to be the value range of this bottle. And then the black cloth behind it will obviously get darker. As I get to this dark area, or as I start to do the light bottle, if that light bottle needs more value, I can choose to make it this value range, and then I would just need to increase the value in the beer bottle in order to create a true dark, medium, light value scheme. All right, that's it for me. Thanks.